Welcome to Zanshin podcast. Davidito. David, so let's get in our topic today. So,
The topic is what is Budo like today?
good topic. There's a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of schools, a lot of styles.
A lot of martial arts, all martial arts from all over the world, not just Japan, China, Korea, Africa, Brazil,
Indonesia.
The Philippines.
And not even to mention the sort of the offshoots that have taken so a little bit of each of those and kind of created their own sort of quote unquote
Russian,
dough.
Yeah, the Russian
Yes,
stuff,
the sambo.
Sambos, the Systema.
Correct.
All those things. I mean, yeah. So I mean, all those things can be collectively Budo, and so it's kind of interesting to kind of what's the experience of Budo today?
Yeah, that I guess when people come into to learn an art, the question is, do they look like by seeing from watching movies or watching, say, an action movie and go, wow, that looks really nice and stuff too, or
that is the reality.
And that is right, or they'll go on YouTube and see something and go, oh, but not really knowing the history of it also too. It's like, oh, punching and kicking looks really nice, or well, I don't know if I could do that. It looks a little too flexible and stuff too. So
like after Kill Bill, a lot of people came in, especially that were women, asking for sword work. Learn how to use a sword. Yeah.
Really?
Or after The Walking Dead, people wanted to come in and learn Joe.
Yeah.
Just those specific things because they saw it on TV. And
Correct. Well, that was a big influx, and too. Remember when it was Steven Seagal and what was it, the late '80s and stuff too, really sort of kind of propelled Aikido and stuff too, right? To the public.
Or I mean, was there? I don't know if you were. Let's see, what year did you start Hapkido?
Oh, I started in 1989, 88. Actually, I was in college when I started, so probably 86, 87.
When were those Billy Jack?
The Billy Jack one. Those were in the 1970s, which was Bon Su-han.
Yeah. Well, you just
love
wonder
that movie.
If after those movies, just like after the Bruce Lee movies,
correct,
people came in to learn how to do martial arts.
Correct.
They wanted to learn what they saw on the screen, which is not real martial arts.
Correct. And they added sort of like that always or also too, remember in television, the Kung Fu series and stuff too with David Carradine and stuff too.
Yeah.
That was extremely fun. Yeah. Everybody wanted to do Chinese martial arts. Yeah. That was like that was it. But yeah, going back to your point and stuff too, is like, so I guess, how does it when someone sees a martial arts too, do you think it is something that they initially look, that's something I physically feel comfortable with, or looks cool, or
I think they that's what they on the surface people think, oh, I see Steven Seagal throwing, I see Bruce Lee kicking, I see these people doing it, and so it seems cool, but deeper, what they're really looking for is this sense of control and this sense of confidence that the person on screen brings. That this person can walk up to a group of 5 bikers and then knock them all out. This person can, never backs down. This person can get beat up, get up off the ground, and still win.
Correct.
Save the girl, find the money, and all.
Correct.
And defuse the bomb, and all in 30 minutes.
Correct. Do you think that? Do you think a lot of teachers, when a student comes in like that, you could kind of tell, by their initial, the questions that they ask and stuff too. But I always find it fascinating and stuff is that after a few months of training, they realize that, maybe this is not exactly how it was.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's a few months. Yeah. I'd say after a few lessons, people go, oh, what is martial? I got to put this work in. Like, it looks so easy watching the teacher sweep this person's leg, watching this person take this person down.
Correct.
I could do that too.
Right.
And then the interesting thing is I have this idea called like the closest lily pad, right? So you look and you think, I could do that, so I could jump to that lily pad. But then you also see people that go, whoa, I could never do that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to jump to that lily pad.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because I mean, the experience I've had with students and stuff too, and like within jiu-jitsu is that the first time that pressure starts, someone's really putting pressure on them and stuff. When you have a cooperative partner, okay, but once they start really feeling that pressure, then so they're like, oh, there's a long road here. These waters run really deep. I mean, for me to really learn this is like, it becomes like that sense of that fantasy almost that they had That,
Yeah.
oh, it's going to be so easy.
It got
It
squeezed
got
out of
squeezed
it.
out really quickly. And look at that. But then again, is it the responsibility? Is it something that you think that teachers should be able to push to the right away initially and stuff too, to really push them,
No.
or try to keep them with that same sort of optimistic view of like, because potentially they all students can get to a certain point.
Well, but that's the difference between martial arts of 2020 and martial arts of the 1990s, the 1980s, 1970s, is that in the old days, they wanted to show you discouragement right away.
Correct.
So that you wouldn't waste their time, they wouldn't waste your time. And so they always made the hurdle to starting the art very difficult. Like at our school, when I was sitting in a Furia Sensei, the sign on the door said, "We're closed." Even though the doors open and you could see people in there and you can hear people rolling, you can see the teacher teaching, it says, "Sorry, we're closed." And I can't tell you how many people have come to me and said, "Man, I went to that school, but the sign said it was closed." But I could hear people in there and I didn't know. But the reason why I did that was it was a very Zen thing to do.
Yes,
right?
yes,
Like you
yes.
go, "Oh, we're closed," and then that's the first hurdle for the student.
Yep.
The second hurdle is signing up. The third hurdle is the financial. The fourth hurdle, and then with every hurdle, you're showing your earnestness. You're showing like your courage. And then, wow, that first lesson, some schools they would beat you up on the first lesson.
Absolutely.
So that to create that dominance, right? Like, there's no way that you're going to ever beat us. So I'm going to beat you up on the first day. So then you don't go, "Well, I could beat up the teacher."
Yeah, exactly. No, I remember the sign. Wasn't the sign home of the untalented teacher?
Yeah,
Didn't it?
that was the sign
The
over
sign
his
is-
thing. It says Bonsuan. The
Which is, could you imagine anybody putting that now, or if it was even, to put that in front? I just couldn't see anybody.
not for the uninitiated. Someone who's already done martial arts, some person who read a book or two or something like that. Then they go, "Oh yeah, that's the ambiance." The kama wanu. Be careful when you enter because we don't care.
Yeah.
Right? And you go, "Well, what do you mean they don't care? They don't care. They'll hurt you. They don't care about your money. They don't care about your fame. We don't care." So that's why that was a very popular thing in the old days of that. The sickle kama.
Yes.
And
Yes.
wa and then nu. And so, today it's like you can't really do that from a business standpoint. And so you can't really beat them up on the first day from a business standpoint. You can't really, there's all these different things in that. Budo, prior to the end of World War II, right, martial arts was a different thing than it is today. Today there's this unwritten rule that you should never end someone's career.
Correct.
Right? So if you're fighting in MMA, there's an unwritten rule. I mean, look at Chris Weedham, right? Weedham?
Yes.
Super
Weidman,
popular
yeah.
guy up until that moment.
Yeah.
But when Anderson Silva kicked him and hurt and broke his leg,
Yeah.
and then they danced around and they were cheering, because they were so happy they'd won. They broke the unwritten rule, which is you never end someone else's career.
Correct.
Right? You'll beat them, you beat them fair and square, that's it. But you never end their career. And that was kind of the turning point for his career.
Yeah.
Right? And then he hurt it again, and then he just didn't have that fire. But sometimes at that level, their fall from grace has to be meteoric, has to be painful, because they'll never quit.
Correct.
But that's that unwritten rule. And so when you go into a martial arts school today, the first day they don't beat you up because the unwritten rule is the student is the king, consumer is king,
Absolutely.
money is king. The old days it'd be like, I don't care how much money you put in there. Well, like Furia Sensei's old thing, someone would call and say, how do I get a black belt? He would say, "Oh, you got to work for it. It takes 5 years." And the person says, "What if I come every day?"
Day for 8
10
hours.
years. No, you don't understand me. Like, I came every day and I trained this 20 years. Because they were trying to get you not to focus on rank, that attainment of the status.
Correct.
They wanted you to have the technique.
Correct.
They wanted you to have the ability to do the thing that you do, so that when you have this, martial arts sticker on the back of your car, you're wearing this martial arts sticker, the t-shirt, someone doesn't just destroy you in the street.
Yeah.
When we think about Budo in the modern day, really is more akin to sport than it is Budo. And
Correct.
that's probably not what people want to hear, but that's that idea, because the lethalness has been taken out of the art. has been taken out. There's no bu, which is fine, and that's this whole idea that the bu, military, and do, the way. Bu is that kanji is a construct of the word stop and spear, right? So the ultimate goal of martial arts is to put down the spear, not have the desire and not need to destroy. But to get to that place is such a long, hard road. Most never get there. So today we took out the battlefield aspect of it, and then we all just practice on being better people. But because that happened, people wanted it to become. They still have the desire to test themselves. Right. So then,
do you think that? Why do you think the sport aspect of it has become so? Do you think it's more because of our cult as an American culture? It's a very competitive culture.
No, I think that performance, right? Sport, or aka performance, is what replaced killing. Right? You have to go up there in front of all these people that are watching. You're nervous, and then you got to perform. And so it's karate, it's judo, it's this, that, or other thing, and that's probably one of the biggest problems that Aikido faces is this idea of no competition.
Correct.
So then, like, how do we know? How do you know if you're good enough? How do you know? And then the teachers, with their beard goes, "Why do you need to know?" And someone called the other day, and he wanted to know about Aikido and all these things, and then the where it segued into was, but can you use Aikido in street fight? And I was like, well, I mean, that's up to you. You have to understand. And then he kept pushing it, and my question was, why? Why do you need to know that? Well, I'm just saying, if I came down and threw a punch at you, then could you manage it? And I go, I think so. I think I could, but that's not the point.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, but I go, so what you're saying is you're going to come down and try to punch me in the face? No, I'm not challenging you. I go, then what are you saying? I just want to know if you. I go,
which he was.
And then I said, what? Why do you need to know that?
Yeah.
What inside of you is so weak that you need to show and prove? Because the thing is, effectiveness is but in that moment. You get older, you get fatter, you get this, you get that. By the next day, can you still do it at that level? Right? Can Carl Lewis win those events in track and field the very next day?
Correct.
But that's the thing, that's just a thing. But the problem is inside of you says, I'm not that good enough. I'm afraid. I gotta shut. Well, if I knock all these people out, then I won't feel bad about myself. I'll feel good. But but inside, you gotta. The next day or that night, you got to pull the covers up and turn the lights off and still be I could kill all these people, but I'm still scared of the dark.
But I also think too that, and I've seen it also, is that we don't have, and some people, some people, like I said, do want to compete, have competed, enjoy, played sports as kids and stuff too, and like I did all the way through high school and college, and enjoyed playing sports and stuff too, and I enjoy the sport aspect of it. But I never saw martial arts as being that sport part of it, even though it has become, in a lot of ways it has become that, but I never really saw it that way, but again, I have a different, everyone's uniquely different.
But you also come from a sport background, and you've already tested yourself in a performance-based idea in front of a group of people that other people have not. And so this idea is that, can you get into the zone and defend yourself when the time comes? And so everybody wants to know that, right? And so we can't really just go out to bars and fight people. So then we use performance-based things to mimic that. So if you have to fight in a match in front of 100 people, or if you have to participate in a demonstration in front of 3,000 people, those same angst and nerves are what replaces the desire or the need to have to kill people, hurt people. But that's the hard part, that if you don't compete, so that's the question people I would always ask. If you don't compete, will you get that mindset? So like in our style, we don't really, in Aikido, you don't have that. But at my school, Aikido Center in Los Angeles, in the old days, we demonstrated a lot in public.
Yeah.
So we would do, during the summer, from June all the way till August. I mean, every weekend we were demonstrating someplace, and that's where you learn how to get into the zone with your mind to do a good demonstration. Because if you didn't do a good demonstration, for your sense, he'll get mad at you.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? If you did it ineffective, if it was weak, whatever, if you didn't have enough power, you were tired, you got in trouble. And so that replaced this desire for competition, but then you still are competing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And but then when that happened, now you need to advertise. And so when the guy down the street says, I also do this martial art, you go, that person's horrible.
Yeah.
You know, and then you go, if you want to learn everything the wrong way, you go down there. You know? And competition comes in, and then competition breeds this negativity that comes about when there's only one winner.
Yeah.
Because really, in martial arts, there is no such thing as winners. There's only losers.
Yeah.
Because if you fight someone in the parking lot, yeah, you might win.
Yeah.
But what else came about? You broke your hand.
Yeah.
Your boss fired you because you do this thing. You had to take 5 days off work because you're to get your eye reconstructed, do all these things. But you won.
Yeah.
But in the end, did you really win? And then, like I said, you're going to go to bed that night, pull up the covers, and see that blood squirting out of that guy's face when you punched him in the eye. And then,
or even kill him. I mean, the other thing is too. There's not even. I mean, the reality of it is if it's a real. I mean, a situation. Winning is going home, even with not one eye or no. The other guy going home. The other person being dead. There is no second place, right?
Did you ever see the Grandmaster Wong Kar-wai's version of Ip Man?
No, no, I haven't. I've seen
the very first part of the movie that Ip Man is talking to someone. It's just a voiceover as he's fighting all these people, and he says, "Oh, martial arts is only about one thing: horizontal, vertical." And you think, yeah, pretty much. Horizontal means you're on the ground. Vertical means you live, right?
You're walking home. Well, the old, it's funny because the old style of Hapkido, there was no, Taekwondo, they had tournaments and stuff too, point tournaments, but in Hapkido they never had tournaments because there was so many joint locks, like Aikido, there was so many throws and joint locks, and there was punching and kicking, and none of the kicks there was only really one or two high kicks for, a roundhouse kick or spinning kick, but they never really showed, and the reason for that also too was that they felt like, who at the time was, Jian Jie their belief was, if I'm showing this and you're practicing for a tournament, you're gonna hold your punches. You're gonna not go all the way, right? Yeah. So his whole theory was, if you're gonna use this in a real fight, you get everything you have. And it was always the same thing. Was there is no second place. You get in a fight, you go home alive or dead. Period.
Yeah.
It's now become it's everything's sort of changed now, and it's the consumer and the person who's selling his goods and stuff too. It's not the teacher disciple anymore. Yeah. Which it always had. That was a traditional way and stuff too.
Or it's the coach and the athlete mentality where, everything becomes a sport, right? So not a long time ago, maybe like, 15 years ago, I used to get my hair cut at this place, and the guy that cut hair in the chair next to us was, in his day in the early 80s, was this a really good point contact karate fighter. Won several tournaments, did all this stuff. Huge guy, probably your height, Caucasian dude. And he would, you do martial arts, and he would bust out with a kata, do some things, show how high he could kick. Oh, that's cool. And then one day, I didn't see him there anymore. And then I didn't see him there again, and then again. And I go, hey, what happened to what's his name? And the guy's like, oh shoot, I didn't tell you. He goes, he was in this department store, and this little guy he pushed his girlfriend and hit her. And then he stepped up like a big man and was like, hey, don't do that. And the little guy punched him in the face, dropped him one punch. He stands up, the guy runs away, he goes home, and then dies from a concussion, right?
Oh.
Kind of like that thing that Natasha Richardson,
yeah.
Liam Neeson's wife died from. Right? You get a concussion, you're not supposed to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Went to sleep that night, didn't wake up. But he was so, accomplished as a point karate fighter that he no longer really understood, plus he hadn't been training for years, but he didn't have that full contact mentality.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
He let this guy that was a foot shorter or more than him step in and punch him.
Yeah, getting that close enough to hit him even.
Yeah, and and so, but that mindset, because he did karate as a sport, he lost the ability to understand what full contactness is.
Yeah, it's like the thing that's troubling sometimes. I was in this grocery store about last year, and it was actually after one of our classes and stuff too. And I was just going to get a few things, and there was a family in front of me that they had the father, the mother, and the 2 kids. And about probably the boys were probably 9 to, and the other one probably 12 or something like that. But they all had all black belts. They held their belts on. They all had they had the 4 or 5 stripes on and stuff too, which indicates their Dan rank and stuff too. And it was aesthetically it looked really nice. They're all wearing their uniform with their jacket, and they're proudly wearing that in the grocery store. And I found it so interesting and stuff too, because you're like, here they are in a grocery store, telling everybody that they're that there's this particular style, and you think to yourself, like, at any point, if anything were to happen and stuff too, how does that translate over? How does that work as far as are they really going to be able to defend themselves and stuff too? Are they everyone, they're obviously telling exactly what they know and stuff, so there's no hidden technique to do.
Yeah.
But this goes back to, I think also too, we're going back to how everything has changed so much in Budo.
Yeah.
Could you imagine going out there? Could you imagine that, wearing your, I'm gonna wear my hakama and stuff too, or I'm gonna wear
you have to. You have to, in order to market your art and get enough students. You gotta wear wearing the shirt. You gotta have the thing. You gotta be dropping your business cards everywhere. You have to social media this thing. Any person you meet, you gotta take a picture with them, because if you don't, your school may not survive. But what we're talking about is like a 70s, 80s thing, in where you showed that style, you showed your style to someone. Someone said, "Hey, I
challenge
sucks."
Yeah.
And then you have to go, "What'd you say?" And then put up or shut up, and then you got to fight this guy in the parking lot because you advertised that you were this person. But you think, well, then how come other people don't? Not everyone goes to the supermarket and gets into a fight, and that's true. Some people have the air about them.
Yes.
Where you just go, "Oh gosh."
Yes, there's a presence about it from their training.
Yeah, and then you go, "No thanks."
Yeah.
But there are other people you go, "Really?"
Yeah.
Like, you're gonna, and that's why it's different for little kids. But I don't. In your style, do they give black belts to kids?
They do. You have to be over 18 years old.
Aikido, you have to be over 16 or 17. You have to be a higher end teenager, and you really should, because, like in Shin Buddhism, they talk about this idea that you never, this article I read about Shin Buddhism is that they don't teach children about enlightenment.
Mm-hmm.
They just teach them how to become better people, and then the enlightenment will come later on when they can understand those types of things.
Well, that's also too, I think, I guess what part does, so when do you think the do part, or the way, is that something that you think that was it always sort of kind of there and stuff too, or do you think that just because of the commercialization, so they go, maybe we'll just use that as sort of a kind of like a pretty cool part of what we do and stuff too, dangling that carrot out there.
It could be the thing that replaced fighting, competition, this desire to compete with yourself. But how many people really want to compete with themselves? That's the hard part. Like, if you go to, I watched this TV show called Alone, where they put you in the Canadian Arctic for 100 days, and they brought all these seasoned survivalists. And I would have to say at least 50% of them did not succumb to the situation, but succumb to loneliness.
Yes. Well, I can see that, absolutely.
It's that mindset that, like, oh man, everybody's at home having a good time. What they call today FOMO, fear of missing out. Probably, it's Tina's birthday. Everybody's on, I bet you John's making his jungle juice. And that.
Well, that's why isolation, right? I mean, that's what they would put it for prisoners of war or even prison, that isolation. You think like, I gotta be away from everybody, just be by myself. That in itself is torture.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like, to do martial arts is to journey inward. You go, man, why do I yell at my wife? Why do I kick my dog? Why don't I want to spend time with my kids? And then you have to kind of think about it and go, and then you realize, oh yeah, My dad never loved me.
Yeah.
And then but see, like every layer, every realization peels off a layer, and then every layer it peels off is exposed skin. Right? You got pull out the scab, pull each scab, and then every scab, till you get to the place where you're like, I'm okay that my dad. I know that my dad deep down loved me, and then I'm okay with that. And now I no longer need to fight people every time I go to the liquor store.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm sure you've trained with people that you could feel that when you
Oh, yeah.
you know. I mean, it's that's going back to part of the dough and stuff, to the way and stuff. We've both been training for so long and stuff for so many years now. It's like you can literally train with someone the first time you grab them, you can almost tell what they're like, what their personalities are like and stuff too. And that fear, you're right. But that's the thing, But again, but that sport aspect of it, does that kind of help? Does that help alleviate some of that?
It does. It can. But the thing is that martial arts today is just become martial arts has replaced weightlifting, right? So then you think that's what I do for exercise. I don't lift weights. I just lift people's bodies, and throw them down on the ground, and that's okay too, right? The hard part is that is like, if you think about like what Greek philosophy would say about within 100 people in the army, 10 shouldn't even be there. 80 are just cannon fodder targets. 9 are real fighters, but only 1 is a real warrior.
Yeah.
Right. And you think that it really does hold true today. So or it's the Pareto principle, 80-20. 80% of these people are helping you keep the doors open. Really, 20 are the only real in it to win it people. And it's probably even less than that in martial arts. It's probably 90-10, right?
Yeah,
So the people that are keeping the doors open, thank you very much. But you have to also kind of put them in perspective, and then try to push them along and then develop them without going, all right, we're going to Tijuana and then we're going to find these bars. So when I was growing up in the 80s, there was a karate school in my town that when you became eligible for black belt, or when you got your black belt, one of the two, I can't remember because I wasn't part of the school, you would have to go to Tijuana with all the other black belts and the teacher and start a fight in a bar. And if you did well, you're a black belt, right? I don't think they didn't really say what that meant, but so I mean today it's that.
I don't think that was in the yellow pages.
No, that was the unwritten rule. But that's hard because then people don't know, because you want to know, does this stuff work? What does it feel like to really throw someone down? What does it feel like?
Yeah, but then it goes to the question too: is it the art or is it the student? Maybe the art could be an effective art, but does the student have the ability to execute that art and also execute it in such a way to make it work in a situation where it could be very violent?
Well, and that's that 1 in 10, right? The 1 in 10 is the person, because and then you also think about these famous stories of martial arts teachers using their arts, outside of the school. Chiba Sensei going to Kabukicho and stepping on the Yakuza's shoes and then beating up all these Yakuza people, right? Everyone has always wanted to test themselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But the hard and that's fine. It's the hard part is that to understand its place. Like testing yourself is maybe just the fear of going up on the stage and performing, doing a demonstration. It's the same fear that you would have to fight someone.
Correct.
There's just no consequence. But what is the martial arts supposed to do other than give you a good workout? And that it's supposed to make you a better person. But that's that dough. So then where did that come about? I think that came about after World War II when in Japan it was frowned upon. You couldn't, a lot of these people that were martial arts teachers were stripped of their ability to teach because they did not want the Japanese rising up again.
Absolutely.
So then people had to demonstrate, no, this is not the way of killing. Budo is not the way of killing. It is the way of putting down the spirit.
Absolutely.
It is the way of self-improvement. Hey, see how I'm doing this?
Yeah, absolutely.
And they go, Aikido is no competition? Sure, no problem, Aikido.
Absolutely. Yeah, because MacArthur, had put that ban on right after war for almost 10 years. And everyone was, appealing. There's many books have written about it also too. Appealing to start the Budo organizations again, so too. But you're right, they took all that out. They wanted the do the way. Kendo was a lot of the techniques that were the sweeping and the more, you would be able to sweep the person and stuff to take them down.
Yeah.
Eliminated. Judo, the same thing was the Newaza stuff that you see, the pre-World War II Newaza. 80% of it was on the ground. 20%. It wasn't. There wasn't any big throws and things like that.
Well,
but afterwards, they had to do it. Why? Because they wanted to make it sport, and they wanted to make it more appealing and show the gentler nature and stuff to the way.
Yeah, that's where Ippon came from, right? This idea: you throw the person down,
Yep.
You win the point, you win the match.
That's it.
Like Kimura, Masahiko Kimura, he was famous for his osotogari, his outside sweep.
Yep.
But one of the interesting things is that he would often give people concussions.
Oh, absolutely.
And they asked him in practice not to use it because he was giving too many concussions to the students. And then when there's like several of his the gold medal matches, when he swept that person, he threw them down with so much power he gave that person a concussion.
Yeah, absolutely. And and the other thing is too the technique that he has, and he was also great on the ground and stuff too. Again, we were talking pre-World War II judo. The Kimura lock that is so famous within jiu-jitsu and stuff too obviously came from
Juji.
And then but he, again, that technique isn't so much a standing technique. It's a ground technique and stuff too, right?
But it's interesting that if you think about that technique has now made its way to standing.
Yes.
And you think that'll never really work because you're exposing. Okay, whatever you guys want to do to it, and that. Or it's funny when I see that technique pop up in Aikido, and then the people do it. Oh yeah, and then they do it, and then when they pin, I go, that's not going to work, right? You know that the person's going to spin this way, right?
Yeah.
You got to step over and do this stuff. Hey, never, whatever, man.
Yeah.
That's what you guys want to do, but that's,
Well, it's interesting too from the jiu-jitsu standpoint is that if you look at, and I've seen this DVD. I have the DVD actually, which is all the old Newaza senseis and shihans and stuff too. The techniques that are even the what they call the Delahiva and the X guard and all these, I've seen these videos and stuff too where these senseis, and they're in their late 60s, early 70s, and it was filmed in probably 1972, 73, and they're doing those same techniques that everybody's doing now. They're supposedly new and stuff too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that foundation came from that. You know what I mean? But yeah, that part, like I said, the do part, the way and stuff too. I know. I think that also too. I think that with a lot of it's conveying that. Like I said, I still think. I always kind of question, and sometimes I ask students, like, somebody comes in or been training for a little while, like, why do you, I don't know if you've done this, why do you like training? What was your reasoning behind it, or why this particular art?
Yeah.
And it's interesting the comments that come back and stuff too, that, it's always first like, I want to, to learn to defend myself, and, the other one is, I want to learn I want to learn an art, a real true art, martial art, But rarely is it anybody coming in and going, I really want to better myself and stuff too.
Well,
and it may be, I don't know, maybe it's just jiu-jitsu.
That's a jiu-jitsu thing. In Aikido, most people say, man, the philosophy really resonated with me, and that I want to, but that's the hard part is that you're talking about an internal, mental, emotional, spiritual thing that you have to cultivate externally first. You cannot go through that door until you walk up to that door and open it. And so to get through that door, you got to learn all these techniques and confront all these demons before you get to this place where you go like, I'm kind of a jerk. I know hundreds of Aikidoists, and I know probably 100 teachers that never ever got to the place where they could go through that door.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of my colleagues and classmates from the old days.
Do you think that also has to do with maybe the style of Aikido and stuff too, being the art itself being maybe not as say, I don't know, like they're not competing, but maybe, for instance, in jiu-jitsu, I see such a much humility and stuff too with people on the mat, because you could go with somebody who, a guy could come in who was a Division I wrestler and stuff too, and he's a white belt, he's only been training jiu-jitsu for a few months, and you're a more experienced guy, go with him, and the next thing you know, this guy's, it's a battle, what I mean, giving you everything, and that I think also brings humility, it brings humility also too, because you're like, what, I got this belt on, I'm not as good as I thought I was, you know what I mean?
Well, but then there's that whole idea of like dominance, right? So like in some martial arts school, it's like each knee, Sanj, everything's done by count. Everything's done by, it's very militaristic, right? And it's done that way to create a dominant structure.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers at the top, you're at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone counts the same, everyone acts the same, everyone buys the same shoes, everyone
Correct.
says the same things. And that is done so that the person, it creates this dominant structure with the art and the teacher, which is fine. That's just the way some people do it. But like, that's the hard part, that when you get to a certain level, you have to leave the physicalness of your art behind.
Mm-hmm.
And if your art does not have that structure in it, you have to leave and find some other place. If your art has it within it, it is very hard to look inward. Right? William Butler Yeats said that, you know, it takes more courage to look inside of yourself than it does to fight on the battlefield.
Correct.
And so here you are having to look inside yourself. You know, I know, but I'll just break their arm. But you can't. It's your mom.
Yeah.
You're having a problem with your mom. You can't just break your mom's arm. I know, but you have to use Aikido on your mom. Oh, what do you mean, like break her arm? No, I mean like the principle and the philosophy.
And that's a beauty. I think that's the beauty of Aikido also too, is it does have that deep spiritual part to it, stuff too. Those components of it, stuff too. It's sort of a stepping stone to get to that, you know, where some arts really don't. You know, they really don't. They really lack that. And I could say that, you know, my experience with, you know, just my personal experience is that I think that jiu-jitsu really does lack a lot of that too.
Well, I mean, it may lack it because it's just not something that we'll see, like, if you look at it from this standpoint, like Aikido, it's a very effective martial art, but not in the way it's taught today.
Mm-hmm.
So it's heavily spiritual, but not as heavy in the physical part of it. In jiu-jitsu, it's heavy in the physical, but not very strong in the spiritual part.
Correct.
Of it. But it is there. It is always there. If you think about it, right? We talked about this idea that you're not supposed to end someone else's career,
mm-hmm.
right? That's compassion, right? You're about to win, you could just snap their neck, but you just do it just enough to let them tap, so that they can fight another day. They can learn from this match and become a better person. Now, the hard part for Aikido is that in the old days, you taught a lot of joint locks in the beginning. And so if someone came up to you and tried to grab you, you would just throw a joint lock on them, right? So that's where that katame waza, right? The kansetsu waza, the joint locks, was the beginning. But later, where Aikido evolved is it became nage katame waza, joint lock to throw. In the old days, they locked it, broke it, threw you, killed you. Today, we lock it, unlock it, throw you down, and let you get back up. But the old days, they locked it, they threw you, and then they killed you, right? Because they needed to. Well, they locked it, broke it, threw you, killed you, right? But that's so that you know you getting up and fighting, coming back from that, right? So when someone came up and grabbed your arm, you broke their arm immediately with Nikyo. You broke their arm with Sankyo. You broke their arm with the joint lock, and then dispatched all the other people.
Correct.
But today you can't just come up to someone and break their arm. I mean, think about like if the best Muay Thai fighters and the best Jiu-Jitsu fighters and the best all competed, right? Who would really win? The person who would win would have to be the person who's willing to cross the line, right? Because you're getting to a place where if you're fighting a master Jiu-Jitsu person and you're Muay Thai, you're gonna have to shatter their orbital bone in order to win, because that person's, you're not going to be able to do this thing. If a Jiu-Jitsu person is fighting a master Taekwondo person, and they just throw them down and tap them, that person could still get up and hurt them. So then they have to break them. So they see how in order to, if fighting, you're always supposed to think that you fight someone of the same skill or greater. So then you have to bring it. But then that's the hard part. Will you cross that line to win? An Aikido person's like, I can't cross that line. It violates the principles and philosophy behind Aikido. And so today, like, you think about this idea of like spirituality, like you can't. If I teach you about morality, then you cannot cross that line. But then when you're fighting someone, you're like, how important is it for me to win?
Well, yeah. I mean, again, but it's again in the context of practice and stuff too. But in the context of a street situation, a fighting situation and stuff too.
But that's that thing, right? Like if you have that fighting spirit. In the '90s, you remember Heel Cho?
Oh, absolutely.
Heel Cho was this prolific Taekwondo teacher in Los Angeles, and he was opening up some like mid '90s martial arts exhibition. So they open up the curtain, and he's like this 10-foot block of ice, and he's supposed to hit it and break it in half.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when they break ice, they tap it to crack it, and then he hits it. So they must have waited a little bit too long, and then when the curtain opened, you know, Heel Cho hits the freaking block.
Yeah.
But it doesn't break, and then he just keeps hitting and hitting and hitting and hitting, and like the students had to run up there, pull him off the block, and his hand is just hamburger.
Yeah, yeah.
And he's like, "Rah!" But he has that fire.
Yeah.
You know, that person, even if you're breaking their arm or have broken their arm, you can't be 100% sure that they're not going to get up.
They're not going to get, absolutely. And they something like that, absolutely.
Yeah,
and they
Shiba Sensei, right? You know, you're like, oh, that guy's getting up.
No, yeah.
And so then you have to cross that line, right? And so today, most people, they don't know how to cross that line.
No.
And even people in the old days didn't. They're like, you know, they talk about the Vietnam War and World War II, that, you know, people going like, shoo, not shooting at the target.
Yeah. Shooting above it or
Yeah.
below, you know, low and stuff too. Maybe just hopefully just graze them in the leg or the hip or something like that. And
So you don't have
shoot
to be
straight
that
there.
person that, you know, has to live with the thing that you have done. I mean, that's today, is martial arts in a worse position because there's no real competition. We're not talking about tournaments. We're talking about like, your style is better than my style. We're going to fight in the street.
Well, I think that's initially, that's how the Gracies started the UFC, and that's what it was. Like, okay, that's your art, you know, and each art, this is our art, and we're going to see, you know, who's the better art, or who's the one that's going to prevail and stuff too. Now it's really athlete against athlete. You know, it's like, this athlete's in amazing condition, learns a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. You know what I mean? You know, and then gets out there and fights, and really these guys are phenomenal, almost world-class athletes and stuff too. You know.
Yeah.
You know, but in the old days it was let's see if your art is more effective than my art. You know, but you're right. It does. That doesn't. You know, those don't exist anymore. And from a commercial standpoint too, you don't want to have that.
You can't have that.
You know, you don't want
everybody's going like everybody's on the side of the mat watching with broken arms, broken necks. I'll be back in 3 months. No, but like that. But that's the hard part about martial arts. Like, you know, Benny the Jet once told my teacher, you know, he said the secret to winning matches in tournaments is that I'm just able to take more pain than the other person. You're like, like, you know, I mean, that's a self-limiting theory, because then sooner or later you're going to succumb, because now your orbital bone can't be repaired anymore, right? Your jawbone cannot be repaired. It's already been you've already got metal in there. You can't take another punch, right? You know, that's why as soon as you detach your retina, you're done.
Yeah.
Right? You know, but that's the hard part about martial arts today, is that what is its purpose? What is it designed to do? And then you have to understand, like, martial arts is layered. Some people can just become killers. Some people just want to become better people. And all those people exist on the mat. But it's the teacher's job to make sure that the guy who wants to be a killer isn't killing everybody in the class.
Yeah. And I've seen that also too. Like some of the most, and it's interesting to see the person that came in with those insecurities that they have, and also start developing and start becoming very strong and start becoming very good.
Yeah.
You know, and then all of a sudden they're taking out all the things that, my dad didn't love me. My mother always told me I was stupid. Next thing you know, he's like, I'm the guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That one bowed down to me and stuff too. So, and that's, you know, again, it goes back to the way of the spiritual part, or the proper training of having a good teacher.
Yeah, you know, that's that Voltaire thing, right? That they talk about in Spider-Man. You know, with this power comes responsibility.
Great responsibility, absolutely.
You know, like I have the Shihonage that I have in my mind. I call it the 20-year Shihonage, where if you use it, you can kill someone with it. You can break their arm, dislocate their shoulder, and kill them with it. And then students have said, "Oh, Sensei, teach it to me," and I'm like, "I can't. It's irresponsible. This thing could kill someone." But that's the thing, like, oh, I need these people to stay and I need the money. Yeah, I'll teach you this thing, it'll kill people. And they're like, whoa, what? Like, that's only going to attract that type of person, right? And so, you know, that's what they say, is that we attract what it is we are, right? So if you're a teacher that only cares about killing things, you're going to attract all these students that just want to kill
and that is such a true statement too, because, you know, we've met trained with a lot of different people and stuff too, you know, and you really see, you know, the reflection. The students really are the reflection of their teacher and stuff too. You know, it is not some sort of like Mr. like silly little, oh, they're like that. No, that is very true. You know what I mean? 'Cause you can tell who. I met guys. I'm like, oh, the reputation of that teacher, and you meet some of their students, you're like, yeah, I could see where that comes from and stuff too.
Yeah, and then
good or bad, you know what I mean?
But that's where this idea of McDojos has come from, right? This idea that martial arts is just a form of exercise. It's not really even a self-defense technique. It's not a vehicle for self-improvement. It's just exercise, man. And then you're like, wait, but you could snap someone's neck with this. You know that you could 1 inch over, you're gouging out their eye, right? Like,
yeah. Well, fortunately, I think some of these McDojos, I don't think they have enough. The technique isn't good enough to do any damage to anybody.
But that's the thing, is that the person who ends up becoming overconfident, right?
Yes.
Ends up being the person that hurts someone. The person who doesn't know it well enough or properly ends up hurting someone. That's the thing where you go, Budo isn't about killing, but you have to. There's still that lethalness there.
Yeah.
That 3 guys in the parking lot. All right, I don't want to fight you guys, but I'm not going to back down, and I'm not going to let you kill my whole family.
Yeah.
And then that's.
Yeah, and that's the thing is too. My whole issue also too is like with these McDojos and stuff too, or from the times of the 70s and 80s and stuff too till now. I mean, you do see a lot, and I think they're almost like charlatans to me, because you're basically you're showing these techniques that are very lethal techniques and stuff too, but they don't know properly how to teach them, and how to the mechanics of it very well. And next thing you're putting that in the student, believing like, hey, I can go out there and fight those 3 guys in the parking lot and stuff too. When in reality, it'd be like, no, you can't, and no, you shouldn't. You know what I mean? You better work on just running. You know?
Do you know what the most effective martial arts technique is?
What?
Run away.
Oh.
Everyone goes. I tell people always like lean in, like.
Yeah, I was too.
Like, tell them what the most effective technique is.
I was the same
Run
way.
away, right? Throw them down.
Yeah.
Run away.
Yeah.
They go away, but there's no. I didn't get any status, any reputation. It's not about that. It's about who lived.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you live? Yeah, you won.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that is absolutely true.
I always fear this guy coming back. If he comes back, does he have a grudge? No, man. He didn't go to jail that day either. He's not coming back.
Yeah.
But and then don't go to that supermarket anymore. But it's like the most effective technique is to be able to maneuver and get and evade and get out of there.
That's very sound advice and stuff too. No matter how skilled you are.
Because you take that person down and then you roll on the glass. And
No, I mean and that's the thing, and there are guys. I'm sure you've known them too and stuff too when you're growing up as a kid and stuff too. And some guys that maybe because they're naturally athletic or natural timing and stuff too, they're just good street fighters, man.
Oh yeah.
I mean they can scrap.
Oh yeah.
They don't need to imagine thinking, wow, they really learned how to fight. Oh my God, you know what I mean? I mean, there's all kinds of stories like that. There's stories of great boxers that were like that.
Yeah,
they just had great timing.
Yeah,
I knew guys like that. I'm sure you did too.
One of my friends in high school was a naturally gifted fighter. If he could get the drop on you, he could destroy you because he could punch you and kick you at the same time. So he would hit and kick. He just had that balance.
Yeah.
And he was a really good puncher too. So he had heavy hands.
Yeah.
So he's like hitting you and then he kicks you and he's hitting you and no technique.
Yeah.
No technique. But then that person also today in his late 40s, 50s is still getting into fist fights.
I have a close friend of mine who from a Serbian family in Chicago, and his dad's, it was his uncle. On his dad's side, there were 7 brothers, and the youngest one, he said that never was trained. And I always wanted to talk to him and interview him. He's probably in his 70s now, and he said, and the story, there was all these stories where they grew up in Chicago, of him getting street fights and then fighting, for money and stuff too. Never trained, smoked, drank, but was able to use his hands to punch and move. And he said he would win and win and win. He had this reputation where it was almost to the point like the older brothers, like, someone's going to kill you. You know what I mean? You're going to run into somebody that's going to kill you one day. You know what I mean? And so anyway, and we're talking, and it was not an exaggeration. He told me was that because he had heard it from all his other uncles, right? At least over 100 fights. And he had one guy finally that, you know, they got into it, and same thing. The guy came up to it at a bar and was like, I know who you are, you're this, let's do it now. He's like, no, we're not. And he turned to him and said, well, you got $1,000, put $1,000 down, we'll go. And the guy had his little buddies with him, they all put $1,000 in, they got into it, we put him in the hospital. When the guy got out of the hospital, he came over to his house with a shotgun and shot him on his porch and killed him. You know, so, I mean, but then again, you know, there's an example. You know, I mean, there's guys that are out there that just naturally can fight.
Well, yeah,
too,
I mean,
you know,
you played ball, right? So there are people out there that can play basketball that could destroy Steph Curry and Michael Jordan, and Kobe Bryant, but they just don't have the ability to do something organized in a disciplined way in order to work their way up through the system and become a millionaire.
Yeah.
But they have no problem going to Rucker or the, you know.
Oh yeah, the leagues here in Los Angeles. I played in the pro-am leagues here in Los Angeles, that Joe Weekly's run, shoot, jump league, and at Crenshaw High School, and there were guys in there. I could think of two guys on top of my head, and so two that were absolutely amazing. And I'm like, where did you play? And nowhere. High school, but nowhere. You know, and you're like, oh, and then and then you find out later that, you know, he was arrested for stealing a friend of his bed out of his room or something like that. Something ridiculous. You know what I mean? Something ridiculous
something
like that.
Stupid.
And we've had students and stuff too that come in. I'm like, man, you have a lot of ability, but they just can't get out of their own way. And stuff too. You know?
Oh man, there are people that have come through the school that I think, man, in 5 years this person would be destroying me, and then in 5 weeks, gone. And I think, well, but that's the hard part of that. Martial arts is this machine which, if you can stay the course, it really can change your life. But it also weeds out the bad really, really easily. It weeds out the weak and the bad really easily. And that's really kind of bad to say, but if you're not going to put some time into it, it doesn't work for you.
Let me go on that topic and stuff too. The old way of when there was a student that was sort of out of place and stuff too, like say a junior student and stuff too, where they would put the senior students next to them, and like and
just tighten them up, man.
Yeah, I remember those days.
But they just beat it out of you.
Yeah, exactly. Right? And we've tried to implement. I told that story years ago in our academy, and we were having some issues, and I remember talking and saying to one of the other instructors, was like, we should just do it the old way, man. Just weed it out of them, you know what I mean? You know, and I remember that it was, and no matter where the person turned, there was somebody. But
you know, the thing is, I don't think that works. I don't think that works. In the end, what ends up working is that you have to be. So Gary V is this guy. I don't know if you know who he is. He's like a marketing guru type person who's written a lot of books. He has a really interesting thing. Someone asked him, how did you get good at hiring people? How does one become good at hiring people? And he goes, oh, I don't. I'm just really good at firing people. And he said, I'll know within a week or two they're not going to work out, and then I just fire them. He said, but he's like, I go with my gut, and I think, well, this person should be pretty good, and if they don't work out, he's like, I just fire them. He's like, but it's not that I'm a good judge of character or anything like that. He's like, but I'm very good.
Do you think that approach can still work now with students and stuff too?
It should, but you're like, man, that guy's $140 a month.
Yeah, well, it goes back to what we were talking earlier about
money. Exactly. You're like, I'm having trouble making my lease payment anyways, and that's where, if it was a real martial arts school, that does not happen at my school. If it was a real martial arts school, they would be put into the system, and then the system would correct that problem.
Correct.
The other students, the seniors, the art, the training, the discipline, or that person leaves, right? But the thing is that we don't. You have to have a really tight school in order to drop any person into the system, and then the system changes that person, and then it doesn't become where I'm their guru. Oh, I got this problem. Call me up at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're like, oh my god, right? But it's that person.
Yeah, because I think that, I mean, I still believe in the old way like that. I still believe that weeding that out, because it's going to be either. But you're right. It goes down because art and commerce they don't go well.
Well, but then the thing is, why do you need to weed them out? Why can't you tell them, hey, my man, you're this way.
Yeah.
And you should stop being this way. And if you don't stop, you're out of here.
Well, I mean, that's one. Yeah, that could be an approach and stuff too. I mean, just basically telling them that and stuff too. Well, but then, here's the thing. The question is like, is it more along the lines of the physical part? What I believe that the physical part would be less painful, than telling the person directly. If I told you directly, hey David, you're just kind of an ass, what I mean, But if I little by little, why am I, you come to me, well, Professor Raul, why am I always getting smashed all the time? And you're going, you know why? Because you're this, you do this.
Well, but see, what you're talking about is something different then. What you're talking about is setting that person up so that they can have a realization.
All right. Well, in closing, David, I think that some of the things that we touched upon and stuff too. What martial arts is and stuff too. I think it's so many different. There's so many different aspects of it: the spiritual part, the physical part, the sport versus non-sport. To me, I think that's a topic that we can even go on further and further and stuff too. But I think we touched on a lot of good points that I hope that everyone kind of enjoys. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's the thing, is that martial arts is so deep. It's so layered. It doesn't matter what martial art it is, right? There's martial arts all over the world. There's Japanese, there's Chinese, there's Korean, there's Filipino, there's African, there's Indian, there's Indonesian. There is some form of fighting in every country in the world, right? And the thing is that and they're all the same. They all can just be about killing and hurting people, but they all can be something deeper, right? And so it all depends on, that martial arts is really for everyone. If you want to come just to make yourself a better person, you can do that. If you want to come to lose weight, if you want to come to become physical, you want to come to learn self-defense, and you want to come to learn there is that for everyone. The hardest part is that teachers have to realize some people are here for this, some people are here for that, and then don't make it a buffet. We're not here to make it a buffet, but we're here to you will get out of it what you put into it. It will become whatever it is you are, and then that's where you go, oh, I came to it to hurt people, but man, I keep hurting myself, and then you go, why is that? And you go, oh man, I have that thing about me, and then you change, and so martial arts really is about change.
Correct. Well, I hope everyone enjoyed our discussions today. We want to thank you, David. I want to thank you deeply for listening in, and we'll look forward to hopefully you guys will be on for our next Zanshin podcast. Thanks again.
Take care.